Hello and welcome to Indie Business Radio. I am so excited to be here. Did you guys have a good 4th of July weekend? I certainly did. I went down to the Mall and Reflecting Pool in Washington, D.C. and saw the most amazing display of fireworks ever. I had a really wonderful time. I am wound up and excited about today's show. But first I want to tell you about our sponsor. Our sponsor today is Essential Wholesale. Over at essentialwholesale.com, you can get the world's largest selection of naturally derived cosmetic spaces in the world to grow your cosmetics business. They have a fantastic new website, hot off the presses today. Visit essentialwholesale.com. They've got this private label selector where you can get as few as 7 products created to sell in your line. It's a wonderful way to start your cosmetics business or expand the one you already have. Check it out at essentialwholesale.com. Well, you know, today we are talking about retail. Now, retail spans a whole lot of things, but one of the things I'm noticing, and I bet you are too, is that small and independent business owners and retailers in particular are sprouting up in cities and towns across this country and doing more than their fair share of making financial contributions to their local economy. It's a very exciting thing to see, a wonderful trend, and I don't think it's just a fad. I think it's going to continue into the future. And to help us ride this wave and take advantage of that, today we've got the retail doctor. His name is Bob Phibbs, and he is the author of the new book, The Retail Doctor's Guide to Growing Your Business, a step-by-step approach to quickly diagnose, treat, and cure. Bob Phibbs is known nationwide as the Retail Doctor. He is a popular motivational speaker and small business consultant who has transformed thousands of businesses throughout the world with his straightforward, proven advice. You can get more information from retaildoc.com. But right now, stay tuned because Bob is going to share his brain with us. I'm going to do a brain dump on you today. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, well, you know, you're chuckling, but I know that you know what I know, right, which is that independent business owners are doing amazing things in cities and towns across this country. Are they not?
Absolutely. Always have been, always will be.
Yes, and it's such an exciting thing to see. I was watching a CBS News program the other day that talked about the rise of indie craft beers. While the larger brewery sales or revenues are decreasing, the craft sales are just, I think it was an increase in 7% over the past 12 months. That's astounding for anybody selling anything that's made in the USA, isn't it?
Well, and doesn't that really speak to, that's why I think it's so funny. People, all the big guys are all talking about localization and we need to come in contact with our customers more. Well, small business has always been local. Small business always understood their customers, which is exactly why those beers are all doing well, because they know the market. And I think that's the fallacy. So many people love talking about how all the doom and gloom of small business, but the reality is America is small business, and it is all those little success stories that we love to hear about.
And they're on the show with us today listening to, we're going to ask some questions of you, Bob. But tell me this first. I have a question about your book. Lots of business books on the market today. Tell me what need you saw for this particular book.
None of them were very good. All right, so, there's so many business... I'm glad you've got that. So many business books that I have read are either written in the academic model, like this professor has studied all this stuff, and I can't even get through the first chapter, or they're so simplistic and have gone back to things and said, everyone's a guest. They're not customers, they're guests, and our employees have to be our best friends. I'm like, ugh, just shoot me. And so when I started looking around at the clients that I have worked with over the last 16 years and how we've doubled sales and what we've done and what I've done the business makeovers for the LA Times or other ones, the common thread was that what you think is common knowledge just isn't there. And, when I talked to the CEO of Crate & Barrel, Gordon Siegel, who started it, and I said, have you noticed that merchandising is just gone? And he said, it's funny you say that because I have noticed that we've had to train the basics because no one ever passed that along. So all those successes that I inherited working in department stores and specialty retail and restaurants and coffee houses typically are not being brought together in a cohesive way that anybody could pick up a chapter and run with it. And that's what my goal was. And from the reviews it's gotten, whether it's Inc. Magazine or USA Today, it seems to be working.
Well, and it is a really nice book. One of the things that's most intriguing about it for me at the beginning, Bob, is that you describe 4 specific personality types when it comes to retail business ownership and management. Tell us what they are and why it makes a difference to know which one you are.
Well, I want to give you a little background, if I may, Donna. So the Greeks had this all right because they originally came up with the 4 personality types, except they thought it was due to your blood or how you coughed up stuff from your chest and stuff. There's something a little off about that. But they pretty much nailed the first 4 personalities. And then we kind of got out of that and we went into, oh, you're left brain and he's right brain. And then in the 70s it was kind of like your horoscope. And then it became, oh, well, someone's type A. And the 90s were like men are from Mars, women are from Venus. So this whole idea of typing people has been around forever. And when I started to rediscover the personalities, there's really 2 main types, and then within them there are 2 subsets. So the first type are the thinkers, and the second type are the feelers. Now, the thinkers, those would be the driver personality, which is me, which we tend to be kind of, all right, think of Simon Cowell, think of Gordon Ramsay, think of Condoleezza Rice. They are very action-oriented, decisive. The downside is we can come across very blunt, sometimes aggressive, and a bit arrogant. And that's kind of the driver personality. But naturally, when we get in a group, people look to us for leadership. Now, that's only about 6% of the world, so there's really not that many drivers you're going to come in contact with. The next group are the analyticals, Donna. And analyticals, think of like Mr. Spock from Star Trek or anybody on This Old House. They're very process-oriented. So they want to go from A to B to C to D. They have a very strict way of looking at it, which is why, and that's what we want. A surgeon is going to be an analytical. We want them to be thinking, all right, so we have to make sure the patient is anesthetized and everything's sterile, and they go through that. Contrast that to the other thinker, which is the driver. Drivers kind of talk in shorthand. So, A goes to D, and then, M, which gets you at X, right? You with me? And if I try to talk to an analytical like a driver, they will pull me right back and go, where is B? No, where is C? And that can be a source of conflict if I don't understand that.
So let me make sure I understand. I'm probably an analytical. You're saying number 1 personality type is a thinker, then there's the analytical
the main
type?
One, and then the subsite would be a driver, subset, okay, and then the analytical.
Okay, so thinker is one of the larger categories, and driver is underneath that. And
analytical is underneath that. So thinker is only about 38% of the world are thinkers.
Okay.
6% are going to be drivers, and about 32% are analytical. This is really crucial that we take those numbers because the next group is like 62%, the feelers, and the first group of that is expressives. Now, expressives are like Kathy Griffin or Jimmy Buffett. They are the original party guys and gals. They are very me-oriented. They are good time. They are, if they're on your crew, they are the spark plugs of your crew. They are energetic and very fun. You find this typically in an opening crew because opening crews attract expressives because everything is new and different. The challenge we run into is that when they realize that, oh, no, this is my day. Every day I'm going to get here and I'm going to have to clean the bathroom and then I have to clock in and I have to do the same thing, they tend to lose interest pretty quickly.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't hire expressives because they're such a strong personality. And yet they're the ones that we typically want to meet, especially in specialty retail. And then the last group, okay, so I think I said there are 9% is expressives, but 53% of the world, Donna, is amiables. Now, amiables could be like, Charlotte from Sex and the City or Mary Ann from Gilligan's Island or like a Jennifer Aniston character. The Norm from Cheers. They're just really nice people, and they will take orders. They won't talk back to you. But the challenge with them is they hate risk, and so they will not risk anything. They won't open their mouth or anything. the danger with them is that they'll tell you to your face everything's fine, but they could be talking behind your back a little bit more than some of the other personalities. Here's the thing. Most of your customers are feelers, and we sell to them and we talk to them like they're all analyticals.
Okay,
that's
Bob,
why personalities...
I'm sorry, I want to back up for 1 second and make sure I have the categories correct. And I want to thank my son Hassan in the chat room for asking that question, too. I want to make sure that we know which ones are which. Now, I think you said there are 4 different types. Is that right? And then there are subsets of each one?
There's 2 types. There's 2 main types, thinkers or feelers.
Okay, thinkers or feelings.
So I'll just use numbers at this point.
All right.
So a thinker, number 1 type, this doesn't make them number 1. They're all equal, so let's get out of that. Number 1 is a driver. Number 2 is a analytical.
Okay, so you've got thinkers and 2 types of thinkers. Number 1 is driver. Number 2 is analytical.
Right. And then for the way we're doing this, then you have feelers, and their subsets would be like number 3 would be expressives. Number 4 would be amiables.
Got it. Okay, good.
The big thing is that there are twice as many feelers out there as thinkers.
Okay.
And so what we tend to find people selling is they discount and coupon expecting that everyone buys based on a deal or a logical choice. Mm-hmm. And the challenge with that is that's how you leave money on the table.
Well, and see, this is a really interesting question because what we see a lot today, of course, as you probably know, being online, is people using wonderful tools like newsletters and Facebook pages and things. And I see a lot of that. I see a lot of really strong attempts to create conversation and get new customers by having those deals. And every newsletter has a coupon at the bottom, and every Facebook status update says, here's the new deal of the day. How do you balance that? Because obviously it's a good thing to offer your customers sales and deals of the day and things like that, but how do you balance that so every time someone comes to you, they're not expecting...
Well, I interrupt you there, Donna. I think that's crap way to market myself. I don't agree with Santa Claus marketing. That's terrible.
Let's talk about that.
That's horrible.
Okay.
If you're going to reward someone, you reward people who already made you money. So if you hire me for a speech, you pay whatever my fee is. When you come back to me the second and third time, I will give you a preferred rate. But I'm certainly not going to give the cheaper rate to someone that doesn't know me. So why is it that we find retailers and small businesses do the same thing? Not do the same thing. They reward people who don't know them. So I'm sure you've been in line, Donna, behind someone in some retail establishment who handed a coupon to the cashier, and they got $10 off the order, or they got their 2 tickets or half price, or fill in the blank. And you then said, hey, I didn't get a coupon. I'm a loyal customer. And they go, oh, that's only for new customers. That was a special we did in a mailing. Okay, how did that make you feel?
Yeah.
See, I think it's all wrong. We put all the emphasis on people who know nothing, and they're just chasing coupons. Look, coupons don't prove anything except there are cheap people in the world. This whole idea that you have to have a call to action, and that proves that your return on investment was worth something. Okay, well, so is that what you do to everything in your business? How much is the landscape guy returning to your business? What about the guy who washes the windows? But yet when it comes to marketing, we seem to think that the number of coupons coming in means we were successful, and I challenge that. That's just not it. Now, if you've got a regular list, if you've got people who've signed up to be on your mailing list, your email list, that's great. But I think what we saw, Donna, and I might be a little off track with this, but, the history of Internet, so many people, when the Internet first came on, they took their brochure and just slapped it up on a website and said, oh, look, we have a website. And it wasn't a website. It was a brochure. And now I think what retailers have done is they've taken their Valpak coupons, and now that's become their Facebook strategy. But that's not really a strategy. That's just playing Santa Claus and giving all of your profit away. So I just keep coming back to that same idea that you reward people who know you, and to me that's not another discount on Facebook, because let's face it, if your husband said, gee, I got this coupon 2 for 1, let's go out to dinner at the Chinese place, or your partner or whatever, or he said, you know what, I got this great dinner tonight. We're going to be on the top of the mark. It looks out to San Francisco Bay. We're going to have the best time, and there's dancing afterwards. We're going to go to the show. Which would you rather do? You don't want to settle for the coupon. Don't you want to have the great experience? And that's not what we tend to be selling anymore.
Well,
we sell the fact that we're cheaper.
My choice is definitely dancing at San Francisco Bay. I'll make sure my husband's listening to this show for when we go there later this year. But anyway, we are talking to Bob Phibbs, the retail doctor. He is the author of The Guide to Growing Your Business. Wonderful book, some great tips. Bob, we're going to come back after the break and talk with you some more about, okay, if we don't coupon everybody to death, what do we do? We're going to come back and pick Bob's brain for some specific examples of things that we can do right here on Indie Business Radio. We'll be right back.
Why is everyone listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com? Because it's the future of talk radio. Every day, more and more people are finding Internet radio as not just an alternative media, but as a replacement to traditional AM and FM broadcast stations. Internet radio offers a wider variety of programs, convenient on-demand listening that meets your schedule, and fewer commercial interruptions. And GlobalTalkRadio.com is already leading the way by matching this content with a highly targeted Internet audience. GlobalTalkRadio.com offers its listeners one of the widest programming varieties on the Internet, from business and finance to self-improvement, paranormal, health, literature, romance, politics, and more. There are also opportunities for prospective hosts who would like to host their own weekly or one-time talk shows. Want to learn more? Check us out at www.globaltalkradio.com and see the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back to Indie Business Radio. We're here talking with Bob Phibbs, the retail doctor, and he is the author of The Retail Doctor's Guide to Growing Your Business. We're talking about ways to communicate with our customers and encourage them and influence them to do business with us without doing what Bob says, which is like eating away at our profit. So let's continue that, Bob. If we're not always saying, here's the new sale, here's the new discount, it expires tomorrow night, hurry up and get it now, what should we do?
Well, aren't you the expert? I mean, there's a great example in my book, and Erin has a little toy store in Stanton, Virginia. You can Google Puffer Bellies. You can find her blog. You can find her site. She does is it every day? Maybe every other day. But there's always something fun going on. So if she's got a kids' craft that afternoon, she's actually got her little flip camera out there videoing the woman who is about to make it. And she goes, here's a project we're going to make today, and it's very exciting, and this is fun. And she shows it, and then after the event, she shows what the kids have made, and you just want to be there. And I have never been to Erin's store. But I'll tell you, I think I've been to her store by looking at her blog, and I've told hundreds, if not thousands, of people about Erin and Puffer Bellies in Stanton, Virginia, because something is going on there. Contrast that to so many businesses right now who are, buy one, get one free, or 50% off your first item, or 10% if you bring in your Facebook coupon, or whatever. There's nothing special about that, and the problem is that those people who are going to chase the discounts and the coupons are not loyal to you at all. They will be with somebody else tomorrow who hands them that coupon. I don't want them. I can't build a business on that. But I can build a business on people who see the value of what my product, whatever that is, cosmetics or jewelry or any number of things, and they see it as unique and special, and you've given the time to treat it that way with the way you present it. Does that make sense, Donna?
It does, and I'm just sort of thinking as you're talking that it sounds like it's kind of like a mindset. I mean, during the holidays, it seems like it's more logical to have coupons and discounts. Obviously, when people are spending tons of money at one time trying to fulfill their shopping list. But you're talking about more of a long-term approach. that develops a
relationship.
relationship.
I'm even talking in the holidays. Sorry.
Well, and the thing is what you just said, what you talked about just a second ago was, the long-term strategy as opposed to the sort of short-term shotgun approach. And when people see that you have invested time to share with them, then they will invest time with you. Is that a logical?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I was talking to a woman at a conference recently, and she was all over Twitter. She just loved Twitter. And I go, really? Why? Because I don't recommend Twitter really that to many people, honestly. I mean, unless you're in Tech Valley or major city, it's probably not your number one thing to be looking at. And I go, why do you like Twitter? I can put out on Twitter that everything is 30% off for the next 2 hours, and I'm able to get like $3,000 or $4,000. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, so it's just another formula to discount your stuff. Well, yeah, but I get $3,000 or $4,000. I said, yeah, but do you see that you're probably just stealing the people who would have bought it later on at full price? I mean, that's the danger. If that's all you can market with, you've just stolen demand from the rest of the month and probably the next month, and they bought a bunch. But ultimately, at 30 and 40% off, you weren't profitable. So it's robbing Peter to pay Paul, and I don't think that's the strategic way to build a brand. I think that's what we're seeing certainly in fast food. So many people have the dollar menu, and you just have to ask yourself how cheap are they going to make this, and how many are going to go bankrupt because at some point you got to say, how much is the food really costing? 20 cents to make, and they're retailing it at $1?
Yeah, and who really wants to eat that? But so let's
right.
talk then. What you just said was you probably weren't profitable. So let's go there, because part of your book talks about the importance of looking at financials, and my guess is that someone in that position is just looking at the $4,000 they got, but not really looking at profit and loss statements. So let's talk about the basics. What are the basic things that anyone in retail selling a product needs to know about tracking financials?
Well, I think your financials, a lot of people don't or they ignore the financial aspects of their business because it's not fun, it's not sexy, and it can kind of scare us. And a lot of people
it's fun if there's a lot of stuff on the profit side.
Well, yes, that's true. But, a lot of people have businesses and they've got a partner or a husband or a wife who really makes the real money, and then we kind of dabble in it. And that's kind of a hobby business. Yeah. And it's like, at what point, in my book, I talked about consulting a couple, and I said, you're dumping like $7,000 or $8,000 into this thing every month. And she's like, well, you got to spend money to make money. And I said, but you've been doing this for 18 months.
Right.
And she goes, yeah, well, so what? And I said, well, that's like throwing the car you drive away every 3 months.
Well, and let me just say this, too, because you just said people have a spouse that's bringing in the money so they can kind of do that. That's not really the case as much as it used to be.
Well, and to your point, Donna, even if they did used to do that, it was a tax deduction, a write-off or whatever, those days aren't really around. Yep. And so I think that those days kind of masked structural weaknesses to begin with, much like the housing market, the retail market. Retail was overbuilt by 20% in the last 20, 30 years because money was cheap. It wasn't out of demand. So until, we get through this, all of those shopping centers with, either had a Lowe's or a Home Depot, either had a Office Depot or a Staples. Until we move through that glut, there's a lot of places to buy a lot of stuff, and they're all chasing something that is eluding a lot of them, which is profits. So I say if you're the small business person, if you just know your financials, I don't care how bad they are. Let's say you're down 20% last year and you're only up 5% this year. Well, great. You're at least coming up. That's wonderful. But there are major stores that lost 30% of their business last year, and they still haven't come back.
So what are the things? I'm sorry. What are the terms? Let's talk about profit. Let's talk about revenue. What's the difference? And what is a profit and loss statement? I know
profit
like
to me
at one time.
That's fine. Well, let's just start off with kind of like some definitions. What is revenue? It's what you took in from your customers. Okay, what's profit? How much is left in your jeans after paying all the bills and the taxes? I mean, simply, in most simple way, that's the way I always look at it. And then what's your profit margin? I mean, profit margin is you divide your gross profit by revenues, and it's usually percentage. But now you don't want to confuse that with your markup or your margins, because sometimes people say, well, I purchased this item at 5, so I retail it for 10. Well, that means you have a 50% margin, which that may sound great, but that may not be enough to cover your cost. Do you follow me?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're doing it all based on, well, I'm getting a 50% markup, maybe what you really need is a 55 or 60% markup, especially if you start figuring in how much your discounts are giving away. Because at the end of the day, America, you're supposed to be making a profit. Any of you who are listening who are not taking $75,000 out of your business every year, that's the goal. So what's it going to take? How many widgets do you have to sell? How much brand do you have to steal from the other guy that you're going to be able to do that? That's what your goal is. And so if you know that, my financials, I want to pull this much out of the business, then you can back into the other things, which is how many average items does somebody buy in a sale? What's the average transaction for my business?
Mm-hmm.
And if you start looking at those things, then what becomes really exciting, Donna, is you can see as you change them how that grows, and that really kind of becomes the fuel to propelling your business forward. Does that make sense?
It does, because you just kind of repeat, and rinse and repeat over and over again.
And it feels good, right?
Yeah, it does. And I want to focus on one thing that you said at the very beginning, which was the strategy of backing into all the details from the goal. I read a report recently, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, that picked up on a research report that said that the chances of success in business are greatly multiplied for people who set specific financial goals. And so what you're suggesting is that you start with what you want in your pocket at the end of 12 months, and you back those figures into there, see what you have to do to get that.
And even if you say, holy crap, I'm putting $1,000 in every month, well, great. But what's it going to take for you to get the $75,000 out? Now, it's interesting. Let's go back to our personalities, Donna, because this is where it all comes in. Let's say you're an expressive personality. For you, it's all fun, and it's great, and you probably hire your girlfriends to work with you, and you just have a great time, and if somebody has to pick up the kids, no problem, we'll just deal with it, and that's all fun. Well, you're not ever looking at the financials, because that's not how you're hardwired.
Right.
So you need to find someone else, whether that's a spouse, a paid employee, but you need to find that other personality to balance you.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I'm a driver. We're pretty blunt. I mean, I fired a guy on Christmas Eve, so don't get me started. It's all about performance, and if you have had 3 written warnings, that's it. But I know that I probably need probably an amiable to balance me when I'm running a store.
You could have waited until December 26th, but that's okay.
That's right. Without that balance, I think we don't necessarily realize our own sharp edges.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly, I find this a lot because a lot of feelers, which is, again, the expressives and the amiables, go into business because it's something fun to do. They're not out there to make a profit, Donna, whereas an analytical goes into business and goes, so what's my return on investment? I put in $100,000, so am I going to get $175,000 out of this? When? In 2 years? I'll take that risk, okay. But they don't go in with the build it and they will come. They really are pretty shrewd. So I think that's the thing, why personalities are so important and why I dove so much into it in the book, is because if you understand your personality and you can say, I'm an expressive or a driver or whatever, and you can see your own shortcomings, then you can see how that plays out in the people you hire, and then you also see that as play out in the people you say are great customers are probably all the same personality, and that's fine, but you're probably leaving an awful lot of money on the table because you're not speaking to the other 3. Does that make sense?
It does. And then let's talk to the business owner type who is a feeler, as you say, which I guess from your statistics most people are. Most of them are. Incorporating these sorts of other types of aspects into our personalities, because we're creative, we're artsy, we love to make things. We really enjoy the process of creating. So many times, Bob, we take the thing that we make well and we sell a little bit of it just to see what happens, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. You just kind of testing the waters out, see what happens. And then people buy it, and then suddenly, literally, Bob, sometimes it's like 5 or 6 months later, we're like, wait, I've been having so much fun. And usually I've had situations where the husband actually looks at the checking account and goes, where's all this money coming from? And
yeah,
it's
right.
like, well, I'm selling these things that I'm making. And then suddenly it's like, okay, wait, let's back up. And then you kind of have to go back and put some of these things into place that you're talking about, right?
Well, and to build on that also, Donna, is to realize what your real cost of goods are. A lot of times you make the widget or you bake the item or whatever it is. You have no idea what the costs are. You're giving your time away for free, and you're excited because you got $20 for the widget. Well, that's great. That's not really $20. What if it really took you 17 by the time you looked at all the materials you brought in, and then the shipping on top of that? You might actually be losing money even though there's money coming in one side of the account. You're not looking at all the other points that really are detracting. That's why a P&L, a profit and loss statement, is so important, because then it balances it and it says, all right, this is what you took in, but these are the direct costs, and then if you aren't charging yourself your man or woman hours, then you pretty much have said you have a slave as an employee, which is yourself, and that's how you build up a lot of resentment.
We don't like that, do we? We're talking to Bob Phibbs, the retail doctor, on Twitter, by the way, at the retail doctor. He's the author of The Guide to Growing Your Business, a step-by-step approach to quickly diagnose, treat, and cure. When we come back from this break, Bob, we're going to ask you about, okay, so I'm that person that you just described, and now I found out that I'm really not making money even though money was coming in. I'm not really making a profit. What do I do? Some tips from Bob Phibbs, the retail doctor, on how to raise your prices correctly, efficiently, and in a way that doesn't kill your business. That's right here next on Indie Business Radio. We'll be right back.
Want to stay on top of what's new in the radio industry? Sign up for a free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio, available exclusively to listeners of globaltalkradio.com, and find out what's new in the world of online radio. Listeners can find out about new shows and special guests. People with something special to offer can find out how to become a guest and how to prepare for an interview. And prospective hosts will find a valuable resource for everything from planning the new program to selecting topics and guests, recouping expenses by selling advertising, and more. Sign up today for your free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio by visiting www.globaltalkradio.com and learn about the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back to Indie Business Radio. And guys, I changed the name of the show to Indie Business Podcast, and I keep forgetting that. But maybe that has something to do with the fact that I'm having a little vacation this week. But anyway, welcome back to Indie Business Podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. The chat room has some folks in there asking some questions and talking to Bob. We've got Lisa Stewart from EC Stewart, a fabulous graphics designer and creator of wonderful products. And Bob, she works with her husband, which is a really cool business model they have. And we also have my son, Hassan, who is describing herself as an expressive. She says, I wake up in the middle of the night worried about the financials. And then she says, well, maybe I'm not an expressive after all. But let's talk, Bob, about what you said.
No, that could be expressive. Analyticals wouldn't wake up in the middle of the night. They just fix it. They would come up with that plan. Expressives aren't necessarily geared to that, so...
Oh,
that's
no,
okay.
That's an interesting point. That's an interesting point. Well, hopefully, she can find someone who can help her, because that's kind of what I did. I'm not the person to handle the numbers, but I got somebody to help me with that, and it made a big difference in my life and my business. But anyway, Bob, we have a question about how to actually, if we are expressive, how do we raise our prices once we discover, as you described, what happens to so many people is, you've been kind of hobby businessing for a while, then you decide to get serious about it, and then you realize you have to really, really jack up your prices in order to, make a profit. How do we do that?
Well, I think we want to start back. I'm going to bring you back to personalities real quick, is just to realize feelers, which are the expressives and amiables, want to be liked. We want to be everybody to like us. We don't want to risk anything. So when I say you got to raise your prices, like, oh, I couldn't do that. I'd lose all my customers.
Right.
Okay, well, you won't lose all your customers, and you're probably putting the wrong emphasis on where to be worried. I want you to be worried that you might lose your house, or you might lose your car, or you might lose your ability to pay for your daughter's wedding, or whatever it is. That's what happens if we don't fix this. I don't care that you might be worried about someone being upset you're raising your prices. We aren't in business to be liked, and I think that's so important for feelers. You're in business to have a living, to make money. And so, when you're talking about raising prices, first off, I'm a big believer, and I say this in the book, The Retail Doctor's Guide to Growing Your Business. You don't have to raise them all at once, but you raise the ones that can move the needle the most. So if there is things that are pretty popular for you, then you look at raising that up. But that doesn't have to be across the board 20 or 30%. But realize that the price is probably in your head those things that would stop someone from buying it because you know how much it costs. Most of us do not know those things. For example, if you go into a car dealership, do you really know what it costs to buy a car? I don't. I mean, it's like they're all expensive, and it's always a lot more than I ever expect it to be, and I just accept that. Well, that's no different. But if you were in the car business, you'd be able to say, oh, that's not worth it, or I know how much that costs, or et cetera. Same thing if it's in window coverings. I work with Hunter Douglas, and a lot of dealers know how much a window covering costs, so they feel bad about marking it up more because they feel they're taking advantage. Even if the other guy down the street is charging twice as much, oh, I couldn't do that. Well, then just hear what you're saying because you're probably limiting your own profitability. There's a difference between how much something costs and how much somebody is willing to buy it for. Does that make sense, Donna?
Yes, explain that.
If we don't understand that I don't care if the widget costs 5 cents, if I'm willing to buy it at $30, then its price is $30 because I'm willing to buy it at $30 and you're meeting with success. If the only reason something is selling is because you are so under market, for example, I go into Starbucks and an average muffin is $3 and yours are $1, and you're saying I'm blowing I'm making muffins as quick as I can, well, you're just digging a hole because the market is $3. And so just realize that the thing that you may think is making you so successful, maybe because you are so far under the market, and if you really look at those financials, a busy store doesn't mean you're making money, but the financial says, oh, wow, we're making $1 on every muffin. This is great. We can build a business on this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I think it's important that anyone listening to this, I don't care what business you're in, it's looking at those hard financials and saying, I need to make X amount to feel good about myself, not that a busy store and a bunch of people saying how great you are is the same thing. You're here to make a profit, to make money, to be a business person, not to be popular. Does that make sense? And be willing to walk away, right, Donna? I mean, isn't that part of it, too?
Yeah.
I had a guy who was telling me, I quoted my fee for a speech. I do keynote speeches, and he said, well, we don't usually pay speakers. You'd have a chance to be in front of, 100,000 people in our website and this, and we would, just expect to pick up your cost of your airfare from Albany. And I said, so do you hire professional speakers?
Right.
I said, you don't quite get this. This is not the same thing. And I said, I'm sorry, you don't see the value of that.
Right.
But it's no different for your listeners right now. What is your value to a customer?
Absolutely.
Are you willing to take anything, or are you willing to take what it takes for you to live the life that you imagine? And I think
there we go back
if we start
to your
looking at that, yeah, I think if we look at that, it's very exciting.
And there we go back to your goals again. How much money do you want to make from this business? How do you want this business to work for your life?
Yeah, because a lot of people buy a job. I'm a business owner. Oh, but I'm chained there every day from 10 to 6. I hate it. I wish. It's like, well, why do you want to be in that then? Take a job at a government office and be quiet. And, we are such privileged people, Donna, aren't we, to be a business person in America? I mean, how many more countries in the world could we have the opportunities we have right now? And yet, so many of us tune into MSNBC or Fox or CNN. Oh, life is terrible, and there's something new to be worried about. And we listen to all that junk, and then a customer comes in, and we bring all of that baggage right to the customer when the customer just walked in to buy your product or your widget.
We're not ready for them.
We aren't ready. We're ready to be failures or doom and gloom. And if you get nothing else from listening to this podcast, please don't share your horrible stories and how everything is rotten or the customer gave you a hard time. If we can start changing the way we talk to each other, we can start changing the way we talk to ourselves, because it really is a wonderful life. And if we don't get that point across, then we're just going to spread the doom and gloom and wonder whatever happened to my life. And I think we can be better than that.
Well, and it seems to me, Bob, that this is a great day to appreciate what you're just describing. I blogged about this yesterday on Independence Day, which I call Independence Day, because it really is amazing to be living in this time, particularly, Bob, where technology is concerned, right? Because we can use that to create so many advantages and so much leverage in our business these days.
Oh my gosh, you're so true. The idea that I can write a blog and it could be picked up by the Wall Street Journal or any number of things. Do you know 5 years ago how impossible that would have been? 10 years ago that I would have had a woman following me on Twitter and hiring me based on my tweets. Yeah. I mean, the world has changed. We just have to embrace it and say, I don't know where it's going, but it's still about me making a profit. But I have so many more tools than I ever had.
Good point. This is such an exciting collection of insights, tips, and thoughts that we're getting from Bob Phibbs, the retail doctor. He's the author of The Retail Doctor's Guide to Growing Your Business, a step-by-step approach to quickly diagnose, treat, and cure. Bob, I want to ask you about, you mentioned there's a difference between how much something costs and how much someone is willing to pay for it. Is that, in a nutshell, sort of incorporating a pricing strategy that involves asking what price will the market bear?
I think so.
Okay.
Again, and I use the Starbucks example of the muffins just because if that's reality, that is your market. Mm-hmm. So why would you then go into the market and say, I need to be at $2? Well, that's just nuts. Why would you do that? Because Starbucks sees so many more people than you. How many would you have to sell? In fact, I give an example in the book about a bakery. You know, if you run a bakery right now and you have to make things in dozens, well, you price them as if you're only going to sell maybe 6 or 7 and throw the rest out. And if you sell out of them, then you made more profit. But you don't do it equal across the board. Just like in retail, you mark something up, let's say, if it's 5, you mark it to maybe 12 or 13, knowing that when I have to put this on sale to get rid of it, it'll be half off or 60% off. So I need to account for that discount coming up. But I'm certainly not going to mark it if I buy it at 5 to 9. And before I forget, Don, I want to make sure everybody knows that if you go to retaildoc.com, you look on the left side, it says personality quiz. You can take a personality quiz, or the long URL is retaildoc.com/personality-test. And you can find out which of the 4 personalities you are, and that might give you some insights to how you would approach that, particularly with pricing, because analyticals will get pricing down far and above any of the rest of us because they are looking at all of those points down the line where this item may have to be discounted, or, it's very heavy, so it's going to cost an awful lot to ship it here, or I have to pay for it as soon as it comes online, so what is my money, whatever I'm factoring it, whether it's my credit cards or something else, what is that charging me as well? And that's why an analytical can be a great partner for you, to really keep you honed in on, is this a profitable business? Excellent point.
Bob Phibbs, the retail doctor, is sharing with us today. So, Bob, let's talk then about, you mentioned earlier when I mentioned technology, you talked about how exciting it is to be able to have a blog, for example, a Facebook page, there's all kinds of things that we can use to create new opportunities for ourselves. What are your tips, Bob, for a retail business, that is a company that's not selling services, they're selling products? What are your tips for using technology to maximize your reach and expand your sphere of influence, and of course, to increase sales?
Yeah, well, I think realize that feelers out there, you're all over Facebook, and you're on there like 24/7, and you're posting, and it's great. Good for you. That's fine, but that's not the main thing. Your main thing is have a great website. The goal is that you have a great website that will show up in Google Local. Again, the book, I walk you through all this in Chapter 7, so I can't go through all of it there, but I explain it in detail there. But you have to be where customers are looking for you. You know, no one goes to the Yellow Pages and tries to find something unless maybe it's your grandmother looking for a plumber. We go online, we put in the search terms. If you don't show up on number 1, 2, or 3, you're dead. You're invisible, and don't say, Carolyn's Crafts and Yarn, and do a search that way, because your customers aren't looking for that.
Mm-hmm.
What are the keywords they're looking for? You have to show up.
Right.
I think also that idea of what you have when somebody goes through and is looking for a product. I think we want to see video. We don't want to have to read it anymore, so making sure that we take in fact, I did a blog about the new iPhone 4. If you haven't seen this thing in action yet, it is amazing because an awful lot of people have missed the application to business. You can make a video on your phone in 5 minutes, add titles, upload it to YouTube, or send it to somebody as an email, and stand out head and shoulders above anyone else. You know, people are still saying, "Oh, I'm sending out my newsletter on Constant Contact." Well, that's great 5 years ago, but cutting edge now is, what does it look like? And you as the business owner can say that stuff, right? You know, I've started doing YouTube videos of me undercover. I was just at Brooks Brothers and a couple of other places. I go, look at this. This is what's wrong. But if I was a business owner, instead of saying we're a family-run business and we've been here for 20 years, blah, 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 no one cares. What we care about is when I click on that link, that search term, and I find you, are you going to match my needs? Then show me. Mm-hmm. You know, you're looking for that special day for that wedding. Here's the things you probably want to be knowledgeable about, and I've got all this right here on our website, and here are the products that do it. And by the way, we also have everything to make it a perfect day for your wedding. Then that says, I understand my customers, instead of look at how great I am, which is I think most of us put online, and that's not the best profile. We really want to say, how can I serve someone else? And if we get that right, then customers come back and recommend us. And that has nothing to do with a discount or a personality, right?
Right, and you know, I watched your video, and I really enjoyed that. And I do think, you know, what newsletters are so great is because you can incorporate video into them. So you can use the list that you've built over many years, because a lot of people are still not on blogs, and they don't know anything about Twitter. But if you can share with them in a way that synchronizes all that stuff together, then you can reach lots of people with the same message in the place that they're most comfortable.
Correct.
So
it makes it user-friendly, right? That's your whole point.
Well, exactly.
It's how do they want to see it, right?
Exactly, and I think, you know, the master of that, the master that most people know, is Martha Stewart, because there's other masters as well, but she really creates. I mean, if you want to learn how to make a pumpkin pie, you can get it on her blog, you can get it in her magazine, 2 of them, by the way. You can get it on the show, you can get it on the radio. I mean, it's the same recipe.
Yeah.
But it reaches.
And by the way, I also just happen to have these crafts that you could buy from my other sites that would go really nice with your pumpkin pie.
That's right.
And let me show you how you could also set the whole table. Yeah. And whether you're doing this in Halloween or maybe it's a good time to do this in April when nobody else is thinking about it. You're exactly right. Repurposing content is what it's all about, because let's face it, I don't think there's a lot of new concepts. It's how we repackage some of the other things to make it interesting for today.
I think that's so right. What a good way to wrap up our show. Sharing content to explain to people what you do and to meet their needs. That's the advice, the tip of the iceberg, actually, from Bob Phibbs, the Retail Doctor. He's the author of The Retail Doctor's Guide to Growing Your Business, a step-by-step approach to quickly diagnose, treat, and cure. Bob, tell us where to go to get more information about you.
You can certainly go to to retaildoc.com, RETAILDOC.com, or to bobphibbs.com, BOBPHIBBS.com, and I speak internationally, I write, I have a blog, there's some free tools and articles you can find out about some of the ways you can either see me or, more importantly, just be a better business person.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. Next week, everyone, July the 12th, I've got Justin Levy, author of Facebook, Designing Your Next Marketing Campaign. He's going to share the latest ways to leverage the latest changes on Facebook, and boy, have there been a lot of them. That's right here next week, July 12th, on Indie Business Podcast. I'll see you then. In the meantime, enjoy your life, build your business, and have your way.
You're listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com.